Have you noticed it? The slow shift from plastic cards and paper documents to a single digital identity the government promises us for your safety. But here's the part they don't highlight. Once your entire identity lives in their system, they don't just verify who you are, they control what you can do. In this episode, we're going to talk about the new digital IDs the UK is trying to roll out for its citizens. Let's get into it.
Don't drink that!
What is up, everybody? This is C, and welcome to another episode of Don't Drink That. Today, we're going to talk about the new digital ID plan in the UK and what's real so far. But before we do that, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so we can spread this channel for everyone. I do want to apologize. I did start a new setup with my camera and my new studio setup that I had. But there was some technical difficulties with my mic, and I had to send the mic back. So I'm trying to get a new mic currently. But I didn't want to stop regularly scheduled episodes for you guys, so we're going to do it the traditional way. So the new digital ID plan in the UK, this shit is insane. So the UK government has proposed a national digital ID scheme for adult residents, commonly called Brick Card. Under the plan, the digital ID would be stored on people's smartphones, like in a digital wallet app, not as a physical card. The ID is meant to serve as proof of identity and residency status, including your name, date of birth, nationality, residency status, a photo, and potentially other biographic biometric data comparable to a passport or e-visa. The stated government rationale: it will be used for right-to-work checks to verify that someone is legally allowed to work in the UK, to reduce illegal working and unregistered employment, and as a way to streamline access to public services, driving licenses, tax, welfare, childcare, housing, banking, etc. The government also argues the scheme could simplify bureaucracy. Instead of repeatedly having to show many different identity documents, passports, utility bills, proof of address, etc., people might use the digital ID for multiple purposes. The plan is slated to be rolled out gradually. Digital credentials will be introduced via a digital wallet, and the intention is that by the end of the current parliament, as of 2029, digital ID will be mandatory for right-to-work checks. The government says it aims to build the system using strong encryption and authentication, and store the credentials on individuals' device, rather than rely solely on centralized external database, similar to how existing digital services already operate. There is historical precedent. The UK previously had a system of identity cards under the National Registration Act of 1939, though that ended in the 1950s. The proposed digital ID policy has triggered large response. Petitions against mandatory digital ID have attracted millions of signatures, over 2.9 million as of October of this year. One of the biggest such petitions in UK parliamentary history. Now, here's the thing, here's my opinion, and I'll get into the risks and real concerns. Why is this even necessary? Like, they already have access to, like, via algorithms and things like that, what we do, what we watch, what we say, where we shop. Like, they can hear my entire conversation right now, and they use it to cater to my interests and my wants. Sometimes my needs, but mainly what they want to make money off of me. So they already have access to all of our shit. This just seems like another step in the direction of singularity. And when I say singularity, I mean having to do everything in it almost seems like a assembly line fashion. Like they want to be able to scan us into everything instead of us giving our information verbally. And that doesn't seem that bad on the front end, but when you think about how easy it is to be manipulated, it's just one step in the direction of barcodes on your arm. Like tattooed barcodes on your arm, like that movie In Time. Like, how long before we move? It sounds like we're moving in that direction. And that is it's a privacy issue. And it's a lot of shit that we don't want to have to deal with. So let's get into the risks, criticisms, and real concerns. While the digital ID plan has supporters, there's also strong and broad criticism. From experts, civil liberties organizations, opposition politicians, and public petitioners, key concerns include security and data breach risk. A central criticism is that a national digital ID system, especially if backed by a centralized database, becomes a hacking target. Experts warn the storing sensitive personal data at national scale is risky. No fucking shit. Surveillance and privacy. Civil liberties groups fear a digital ID system could evolve into a mass surveillance infrastructure. Once people are used to showing digital ID routinely, various aspects of life could require identity verification. Banking, employment, housing, welfare, travel, benefits, etc., leading to a loss of autonomy. Anonymity. I can't talk. Anonymity. Thank you. And state oversight over daily life. Function creep. And expanding use beyond original purpose. What begins as a right to work service access, ID could gradually expand to more activities, raising concerns about unintended or future uses. Tracking, profiling, linking medical or financial data, surveillance, or control. So that's kind of what I was getting at, is that we're slowly but surely getting less and less privacy in our lives. Now, let's be honest. A lot of y'all give that away. I give it away. Like, a lot of us give away a lot of our privacy when we sign terms and conditions that we don't read. But the shitty thing about it is it's not like you can disagree to terms and still use the service. You still have to agree to the terms or you can't use the service. So when it's something that you need, my advice would be to read the terms and conditions and then prepare yourself for whatever outcome there could be from signing on the dotted line. There is an exclusion and inequality issue. Not everyone has a smartphone or stable internet access. Some people, elderly, disabled, homeless, low income, those in digital poverty, could struggle to access or use a smartphone-based digital ID, raising risk of excluding them from services, work, housing, or benefits. Erosion of civil liberties and state overreach. Critics argue that mandatory digital ID is a departure from Britain's tradition of civil liberties, moving toward what some call a checkpoint society where ordinary people constantly need to prove their identity just to live daily life. And and here's the thing, for people who want to live off the grid, could this still work for you? Like, could you still avoid the digital ID? Because they've made it almost impossible to live off the land. because you have to have a license to hunt, you have to have a license to fish, you have to have a license to farm. So living off the grid is essentially impossible. So the little privacy that you would get living off of the land and the capacity that you can now would be even more so challenging. It also creates a lack of trust in government and data security. Polling commissioned by critics found that a majority of people, around 63%, do not trust the government to keep digital data secure. Effectiveness doubts. Some experts and critics argue that digital ID is unlikely to solve key problems the government claims it will: illegal immigration and unregulated work. For instance, determined illegal immigrants might still find ways around checks. ID checks don't necessarily stop exploitation or evasion. Risk of centralizing too much power and information. A centralized ID system creates a powerful tool for the state, or even private actors, to link data across services, jobs, housing, benefits, medical, finance, potentially enabling profiling, discrimination, or coercion. Some observers argue that given the UK's prior failed attempts, for example, the abandoned national ID proposals in the early 2000s, the system might become expensive, insecure, or fail to deliver on promises. I didn't even think about costs, because if you're going to make it mandatory, you would think, you would think that they would distribute it, because, and how does it impact people who already have a job? Like, if you already work, do you have to in order to keep your job, do you have to do this? Like, if your job is a pretty secure job, are they allowed to lay you off if you don't have it? And then on top of that, can you not shop at grocery stores without it? Because you don't have to give information when you go there anyway, other than your card or cash. So it's just odd to me. This whole situation is odd. And apparently the critics and civil liberties groups also think so. So then you have Big Brother Watch, a leading UK civil liberties organization, has been a strong opponent. They argue the digital ID plan threatens privacy, equality, and civil liberties, and would move Britain toward a mass surveillance checkpoint society, which we've already kind of covered. Critics also highlight that the scheme as proposed lacks democratic legitimacy. It was not part of the latest general election manifesto, has not undergone full public consultation or detailed parliamentary scrutiny. Yet it could impose major changes on daily life. That sounds a lot like the vid, the whole thing behind that. It sounds like we were forced into that. Now UK is getting forced into this. I don't know. Many political figures across different parties, not just opposition, have expressed worry or opposition. From conservative and liberal Democrat leaders to regional leaders in Scotland and Northern Ireland, some citing civil liberties concerns, some constitutional concerns. Public reaction has been strong. Millions have signed petitions, and there is broad public skepticism, especially regarding data scrutiny and potential overreach. Now, let's get into the conspiracy theories. Alright, so the conspiracy theories, fears, and speculative extreme scenarios people talk about because digital ID touches on privacy, identity, and power. It naturally breeds speculation, fears, and conspiracy-driven scenarios. Here are some of the most common claims, theories floating around, and how grounded or speculative they are based on what's known. From social media and public discussion, people say things like, "This isn't about convenience, it's about control. It creates a single point of failure for hackers and criminals. Once in place, it won't stay voluntary." It'll creep into banking, healthcare, employment, travel, other more dynamic, dramatic claims heard from some conspiracy-oriented corners. The digital ID will morph into a social credit system, which I've been saying this. We're moving toward a social credit score, and it's going to be ridiculous. And I actually have a short story that goes with this, so brace yourselves for that. Where access to services, freedom of movement, or purchases is controlled or restricted based on compliance or behavior. Digital ID will be tied to or used in concert with biometric tracking, surveillance, cameras, facial recognition, and even new technologies. For example, hypothetical future digital currency systems, enabling real-time monitoring of where people go, what they buy, who they meet, etc. Refusal or inability to adopt digital ID, lack of smartphone digital literacy, non-compliance, could relegate people to a kind of second-class citizen status, unable to work, access services, housing, banking, travel, etc. However, many of these remain speculative or unproven. Some of the more extreme claims, social credit, universal surveillance, state total control, rely on assumptions about future expansions of the system that are not part of the current proposal. As one commentator says, digital ID could be misused, but only if authorities make it mandatory for all aspects of life and aggregate data across systems. Even critics of the scheme sometimes see a less dystopian but still deeply concerning outcome, namely loss of privacy, discrimination or exclusion, and a more intrusive data-dependent relationship between citizens and the state. Well, here's my thing. If this works for them, or for the government, I should say, because it's not going to work for its citizens, and it does, how long is it before they try to implement that in the United States? And what would even be, like, what's the purpose of all this? That's my question. Is like, they say it's for ease of access, but you have to balance that with privacy. You cannot completely take privacy away for maximum convenience, because then it is control. Now, here's why it matters and what's at stake. So we went over civil liberties and privacy, digital inclusion, exclusion risks, state power and oversight, social trust and legitimacy are definitely in question. Now, here's the public sentiment in online discussions. Because this issue is controversial, discussion online is intense, to be expected. From reasoned critique to alarmist predictions. For instance, on social media or Reddit, many express fear that digital ID is a tool for control. Once in place, it won't stay voluntary. Yeah, we went over that. And then some argue the fears are exaggerated, pointing out that other countries have digital ID or digital identity systems without it being a dystopia. For example, plenty of European countries have digital IDs. None of them are surveillance hellholes, and citizens quite like them. I'm not buying that shit. I'm not buying that one bit. You're not going to get me to do a fucking thing that takes away any of my privacy. Others highlight that trust in the government's ability to secure and manage such a system is low. No system is immune to failure. All your vital personal information will end up on the dark web. In short, there's a mix of genuine practical concerns and speculative fears. Now, what's still unknown and what to watch out for, because the plan is still being developed and many important details are still unclear. The design of the system, centralized versus decentralized storage, how much data will be stored, what safeguards will exist. Some supporters argue a decentralized cryptographic-based system could mitigate many risks. How mandatory the system will really be, while right to work checks are to be mandatory, it's unclear what other services might require the digital ID and how alternatives will be provided for people without smartphones. How data access and usage will be regulated, audited, and overseen. There will be independent oversight, transparency, logs, limits on data sharing and access. That isn't yet spelled out. What happens if there's a major data breach or misuse? Given past problems with large UK government IT data systems, this is a major concern. Many critics argue that without radical improvements in governance and security, the risks are way too high. Will there be will there be effective protections or vulnerable or digital excluded people, old people, disabled people, those without smartphones or stable home addresses, migrants, etc.? Many worry the system could disproportionately exclude or penalize such people. Now, what we should keep in mind is the digital plan for the UK brick card is real, proposed, and in motion. It's not just hypothetical or conspiracy. There are some genuine political advantages: convenience, streamlining identity verification, easier access to services, and also serious, well-grounded concerns around security, privacy, civil liberties, exclusion, and misuse. Many of the more dramatic fears, mass surveillance, social credit system, total state control, remain speculative and depend on how the system is designed, regulated, and used. Because large parts of the plan remain undefined, data architecture, oversight, alternatives, security protocols, there's a risk. Without strong legal and technical safeguards, the worst case scenarios are not impossible. Public debate and scrutiny are intense and important. Many civil liberty groups, politicians, and ordinary citizens are pushing back or demanding modifications. So it just seems like this shit just keeps snowballing. Like the more technology that comes out, the stronger the AI gets, the more it seems like we're losing our control as humanity. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, what's the like, are we gonna be? It just feels like we're gonna be some kind of lapdog. Like, how long before we get told when we can eat? How long before we're told where we're allowed to eat? How long before, I don't know, how long is it going to be before we end up just being in a literal assembly line, controlled by armed guards, and it's just like beep, go, and then, like, what, you have a bad credit score because you accidentally cut someone off on the highway and they're emotional and they put it and they, what, you know what I'm saying? Like, or you accidentally get hit in a car accident and they blame you, so they give you a bad social score, you give them a bad social score, and then both of you can't fucking eat. Like, that's I know that sounds extreme and dramatic, but how far off are we from it? How much further is this gonna go? I don't know. You guys tell me what you think. I'll put a poll up at the end of this episode, and you guys tell me what you think. But for today, that's all I've got. The next episode later this week will be What day are we on? No, I'd say, because we've got Christmas coming up, and I have episodes for you guys for the Christmas week. So we're going to follow up on this story after Christmas. So I do have a short story for you for after Christmas, and you guys are going to love it. But for now, I just want you guys to stay safe, do your research, and please, for the love of God, don't drink that. And don't forget to like and subscribe.